Okay.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the webinar, Farm Women, Centrality and Climate Actions in South Asia. This is our third webinar in the series on gender equity, mobilization, and sustainability, initiatives from the Global South. Before we get started, I just have to review a couple housekeeping items. Since this is a webinar, your audio will be on mute during the presentation. If you'd like to ask a question of the presenter or make a comment, use the chat function at the bottom of your screen. And for any technical or logistical issues, send a message to Taylor Dorsey, our co-host, during the chat, again, using the chat function. Finally, please enter your name in the chat box and your affiliation. Okay, so I'm Karen Kaiser, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. This webinar is being co-sponsored by the U.S. nonprofit Friends of Kalangarai and Adelphi University. Friends of Kalangarai supports the community-based programs of Kalangarai, which is an NGO that serves widowed and abandoned women in South India, with community-based programs and microcredit loans, self-help groups, and leadership training, among others. This series of 6 webinars features professionals leading innovative programs that focus on poverty, women's rights, environmental justice, and socioeconomic development in South Asia. Despite our efforts to educate and economically empower marginalized women in Global South, there's still extensive work to do. According to the United Nations reports, gender inequities are still deep-rooted in every society. Women suffer from the lack of access to sustainable work and gender wage gaps. Many are denied access to basic education and healthcare and are victims of violence and discrimination. Furthermore, they are underrepresented in political and economic decision-making processes. Despite these discouraging reports from the UN, there are numerous initiatives making progress in empowering and mobilizing women and girls. The fourth gem in this series of webinars is sustainability. When examining the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, all of them address some aspect of sustainability, namely dimensions of climate change, water, food, and land, and environmental health. As we move forward with implementing our programs to address gender equity, we will need to think about how we can integrate gender equity and empowerment with these dimensions of sustainability. So I'm now going to turn over the virtual mic to Dr. Gokul Mandayam, who will introduce today's speaker. He is on the faculty of the School of Social Work at Rhode Island College in Providence, Rhode Island.
Thank you, Dr. Kaiser, for the kind introduction. So good morning, folks. Welcome to the webinar. It is indeed my honor and privilege, and I feel very proud to introduce Dr. Rajeshree Joshi, my MSW classmate, when I went to MSW school in India. Thank you again, Dr. Joshi, for your time. So Dr. Joshi is a social scientist by academic training and is currently a program director based at BAIF Development Research Foundation in Pune, India. Now, a little word about BAIF Development Research Foundation. This is an organization that has adopted the Gandhian approach to rural prosperity in their work. And Dr. Joshi is in charge of developing programs in response to emerging development needs, which includes climate change related actions, rural women empowerment, tribal livelihoods, revitalization of indigenous knowledge, and nature-based solutions. She is also a part of the Apex Climate Action Committee at BIAF that takes up proactive work on climate action research, capacity building, and partnerships. Today, Dr. Joshi will be presenting on the topic of farm women centrality in climate actions in South Asia, where she will discuss sectoral effects on agriculture, vulnerability of farm women, and best practices focusing on farm women centrality in her work at BAIF. So without further ado, Dr. Joshi, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Karin and Dr. Gokul. I'm very honored and feel privileged to be invited to interact with all of you. And what I'm going to present today is the kind of work that we have been doing at BAIF. It's a BAIF is an acronym, which is now we call it BAIF Development Research Foundation. And there are few slides and I'm going to run you through those slides. The main purpose is to talk about emerging issue of climate change and climate variability, and also its resulting effects and the kind of vulnerability that is there, and based on that what is a response that is required. So I would request Taylor to screen my slides, and I hope my slides are visible. And it will be say 30 to 40 minutes of presentation. Followed by that, we can have question answers. And I'm looking forward to this interactive session actually, where I'm sure the other side of world, you will have lots of questions on the kind of work being done in South Asia. So, little bit about BAIF. So, BAIF is a civil society organization. It's an NGO which was started by late Dr. Manibhai Desai ji, and he was a Gandhian follower, Gandhiji's follower, disciple. And when India got independence, Gandhiji told him to um, give his entire life for the cause of rural prosperity, because Gandhiji believed that India cannot remain independent as long as our villages are poor. And that is the kind of agenda or the thrust area or the goal that BIF has been believing in. And we are totally committed for sustainable rural development in India. And this work is ongoing for past almost 5 decades. Next slide, please. So this is ongoing almost for 5 decades, and currently, as you can see, the our presence is in different locations, almost 14 states of India, and we have various program pillars. These program pillars I will be explaining afterwards. So these program pillars are essentially aimed at building the self-reliant rural society, and our mission is to create opportunities for gainful self-employment for rural families, especially disadvantaged section, also including women, and ensuring sustainable livelihoods and enriched environment. And while doing that, improving the quality of life and good human values. So this is the kind of mission. And currently we are a multidisciplinary team of scientists, professionals, development professionals, and also different kinds of people having different domain expertise. And we are working in close coordination with government of India, also multiple foreign donors, a philanthropic organization, and corporates. You all must be aware about corporate social responsibility, which is introduced in India. So they are also supporting. Next, please. So, with this mission and vision, BIF started work in way back in 1967, and currently our programs are on different pillars. And when I'm showing these pillars, these are the programs introduced at a scale. Like a lot of our programs are on livestock, because livestock is very important kind of resource in India. So essentially, it is the farming community with whom we are working, and they are mostly their entire livelihood is based on crop and livestock based farming system. Apart from that, we are also working on other kind of natural resources like water, soil, land, energy, commons such as pasture land, and also on biomass. So these are various natural resources around which we are working. And there are several cross-cutting programs. When I'm saying cross-cutting, these are kind of important program, and there are elements like, for example, women empowerment, gender, the research. So these are cross-cutting programs. And when we are working with farmer organizations, we are working with SHGs, self-help groups, and essentially all these we are aiming at transforming the rural livelihoods and bringing prosperity to villages. Next, please. So with these core programs, we realized like some of our core programs that we had introduced, like livestock-based livelihoods or WADI, which is a agroforestry system, and that is also very important program in BIF. Then natural resource management, and a lot of those programs that we had introduced for past 5 decades, we realized like it is under threat, and that threat was climate change. And I think none of us can be spared, and every one of us are experiencing the effect of climate change and climate variability. And almost we started to little bit probing whether climate change is real or it is kind of hype. And that was in 2011 when we started visiting different villages in India, and we started understanding what are the effects of climate change, whether things are changing, whether climate change is affecting our livelihoods like farming maybe, or fishery maybe, or forest based livelihoods maybe, also migration and other type of livelihood activities that are there in India. And we realize like climate change is real, it is happening, and not only it is real and happening, but it has got a kind of ability to jeopardize all our earlier efforts. And that is when we realized we need to provide some response to this climate change that is there. And this response, next please. So this response can be of two type, as all of you know. This can be mitigation or adaptation. And we try to understand the entire vulnerability. And then we realize like although climate change is affecting the entire globe and many countries, and it is affecting the kind of lives and livelihoods, we realize like India is more vulnerable to the effects of climate change because of three reasons. One, because India is totally agrarian. I mean, almost 60% of our population is involved in climate sensitive sectors like agriculture, fishery, livestock, forest based livelihoods. So that makes India vulnerable. Second is because India is peninsular. I think a lot of effect of those sea water rise, tsunami, or wind patterns, monsoon. So I think India is totally rain-fed and dependent, heavily dependent on monsoon. And it in climate change, the precipitation has been affected very badly. So that is one more area why India is vulnerable. And third thing we realize like is sensitivity. The lot of dependence on climate sensitive sector, and therefore any change in rainfall, any change in weather patterns, any change in some of the features like humidity or temperature, people are at loss, and lot of damage that is happening. So we are highly sensitive also, and there are no other alternate livelihood options that are there. And last one is adaptive capacity. Majority of the Indians are dependent on agriculture. They are small landholders. They don't have big lands, and they are not large farmers, but they are essentially small and marginal farmers. And they are hand to mouth situation, and because of which the adaptive capacity is also less. And for all these reasons, we realize like India is highly exposed, less adaptive, and highly sensitive. And that is why we realize like India is most vulnerable to the effects of climate change. Next, please. So within India also, we try to understand who are these communities who are most vulnerable. And we try to use a tool called Crystal Tool, which is a climate risk analysis tool that is developed by IUCN, FAO. And this tool is being used to understand whether the projects or responses that we are providing are right, or whether mid-course correction is required. CRISTAL, Crystal is a tool. And using that tool, we try to understand what are these hazards. So because climate change means different thing for different regions. Like somewhere flood is the main hazard, somewhere drought was the main hazard, somewhere unseasonal rain was the main hazard, and somewhere low snowfall or less snowfall was the main hazard. More heat or extreme events, that was the hazard. So I think different people had different perceptions of what that hazard means, and they were able to prioritize those hazards also. After identifying hazards, we tried to understand what are those impacts, what are those impacts of those hazards. Like for example, uh, floods. So floods, the coastal areas of India has been affected badly, and there are tsunamis, there is a submergence of land, then there is seawater intrusion, increased salinity. Because of drought, the entire 3 4 states of India, which are essentially dry land, they were suffering. There were crop losses, water scarcity, disease and pest outbreaks. Because of heat, there were more diseases, also mortality and morbidity. And then we try to understand what are these coping mechanisms that are there. And we realize like most of the coping mechanisms are like, instead of food crop, people are going for fodder. Instead of, when there is no water, they are releasing their cattle. There is no fodder for them, or they are migrating, they are working in diamond industries. But these are not sustainable coping mechanisms. Like, these were just kind of alternatives that people had adopted, and people, especially farmers, were clueless about how to go about. Next please. So this was an essentially eye opener for us. And then we realized, like, when we tried to understand what was the situation before say 30 years, and what is the situation now, and what could be the situation 20 years down the line, we realized like lot of uncertainty was there. And within that, different sections of population were affected. Although all are affected, they are affected disproportionately. And different, like women were badly affected, small and marginal farmers were badly affected, rural population were badly affected. Because in cities, like, most of us are getting salaries, so we don't mind even if it doesn't rain or it rains less, or even if onset of monsoon is less. But it is the farming communities who are totally dependent on monsoon, and that is the entire cropping calendar had gone for a toss. So that was the kind of realization. And main thing was uncertainty, unpredictability. There was no technologies, services or practices which they could adopt, and that was the realization. Next please. So against all this backdrop, we tried to understand what could be those sectoral implications, say for water, say for soil, say for land which are degraded, for livestock, for agriculture. Like that, we tried to understand the sectoral implications also. Next please. And majority of the India is arid and semi-arid. So the another context, so climate change was one context. The second context was feminization of farming. Like in India, it is essentially family farming. So the entire family or husband and wife, they work on their farm. And now, because of the better opportunities, in search of better choices, able-bodied men are migrating to cities. And it is essentially the women who are settling down in villages, and they are taking care of land, they are taking care of their children, they are taking care of their livestock. And essentially, whether they like it or not, it is the female population which is entirely involved in farming related operations in India. So that was another context, and because of which there was lot of drudgery. There was lot of kind of hardship that a woman had to face. Now this situation of feminization and climate change, that again led to some of the operations are manually being done by women, like weeding. So there were newer weeds, new pest attack, loss. Post harvest was difficult because of the changes in weather, temperature variations, extreme climate events, and all of these. It was the women who were badly affected. Next, please. So this was the kind of context. Now, yeah. So the one another thing is, women are the kind of important demographic group in India, and also 50% of rural population or rural labor is women. Actually, it is more than 50. Actually, it is the women who have still retained the culture of agriculture. So, like you can see role of women in agriculture, whether it is seed preservation or whether it is post harvest preservation or food processing. And also it is, lot of those festivals, those useful tradition, it is the women who are playing important role. They are the custodian of lot of useful traditional knowledge. And so there is they are also the main kind of keepers, or main they have main role to play when it comes to food and nutrition security of the family also. So that was also the thing. And increased feminization of farming. So all of these are made the problem quite complex. And most of the things are interlinked to each other. And that was the kind of context we tried to understand while working on climate actions and while working on gender and climate action. And we realize, like, gender, nutrition, agriculture, this needs to be seen as a continuum and not isolated or standalone problems. So that is the one realization that we realize. Next please. So against this, then we try to introduce some responses. And one such program which we conceptualized was in Himalayas for hill women. In hill women, especially because of employment, limited employment opportunities, the men are migrating, or they are busy in hotels, which is a tourism zone. They are busy in hotels, they go to army. And it is the women, it is difficult terrain, these are geographically isolated hilly terrains. And the survival is to hand to mouth. And here the lot of drudgery is there for women. And land holdings are also terraces and quite hilly. And uplands are there, the agriculture farming has to be done on those uplands and fragmented land. So that made the problem quite severe. And we introduced a program with the help of adaptation fund board for sustainable livelihoods of agriculture dependent hill communities, especially hill women in Himalayas. Next, please. So that was one important program. Then we also started looking for other kind of pathways and programs around gender, climate action, nutrition, and agriculture. And one important another pillar that we focused and which has a kind of replicability or scalability is work on agrobiodiversity. And when I'm saying agrobiodiversity, every region has this kind of amazing agrobiodiversity because of land races, the native crops that are there, the millets that are there. You all know this year has been declared as International Year of Millets by UN as per the request of India. And these millets are superfood now. These are very, very sturdy, robust. There is amazing diversity that is there. And these are highly resilient to the effects of climate change, and they can sustain less rainfall, they can sustain heavy rainfall, they can come in hilly terrains. So I think these millets kind of lot of work we are doing around millets as superfood. They are rich in calcium and other nutrients also. They are fibrous, they give different texture, color. So the one action. And millet in women, again lot of linkages are there. I will be explaining in next slide. Next please. So that is one important pillar of our program. Now when it comes to nutrition sensitive food system, now what has happened is, I explained you one context of climate change, one context of this feminization farming, and the third context was industrial agriculture. Now everywhere we are saying the lot of our agriculture, the food that we eat, there is a narrowing base of the food that we are eating. Like earlier, if we ask our forefathers and our grandfathers, they will have multiple options, as or their diet will consist of many food items. Whereas if we analyze our food thali, the plate that we eat, and the food plate of our children, we will realize that there is a narrowing base now. And that is also very kind of worrisome. So what is happening is, although on growth front, I mean in terms of productivity yield, we are doing well on production level, but when it comes to dietary diversity, I think things are not that good. In terms of performance on as far as our malnutrition is concerned, even in India there are a lot of problems. So we realize, like, this is again the climate change is again contributing to it. Because then it gives farmer very limited choices of what type of food he will grow, what type of So again, the climate change is posing threat on general food security. So we realize, like, for women again have very important role when we are talking about resilient and nutrition sensitive food system. So what it means is we should have a food system which has a better access, improved availability, improved affordability, adequacy, and also it helps addressing seasonal food deficit, and it also takes care of food safety and dietary diversity. And if you can reflect upon role of women, I think women are playing important role in all these aspects, whether it is access to food, whether it is affordability, whether it is adequacy, whether it is dietary diversity and food safety. I mean, it is the when it comes to preservation, food preservation, it is the women who are playing very important role, and they have traditionally acquired that knowledge from their kind of other ladies that are there in the family. So yeah, next please. So this was another area that we started work, and so here the focus was on improved health and nutrition in the light of climate change, with special focus on women and children. And where we one of the program that BIF has started, which has again can be scaled up, is work on agrobiodiversity and wild food resources. So most of these tribal areas or these remote villages, they were having rich sources of food earlier, but they are getting depleted now because of the land degradation in general, habitat destruction, and also climate change. So I think now imagine the one side climate change and we are not going to get our regular paddy. But what if we are aware about the tubers, different kind of tubers? They are called as famine foods that can grow year round. There are this pumpkin that can be stored year round. So I think this type of knowledge is getting now eroded, and that needs to be preserved and revived. Not only preserved and revived, because like when I go to villages, like there are new generation is not aware. For example, now there are so many tubers, but how to process it? There are certain ways to process it. They keep it in flowing water in river for one night, and their alkaloids get reduced, and then it is the people are able to consume it. But if next generation is not aware about these processing practices also, then I think they are it's a poverty amidst plenty kind of issue will happen. So that's the kind of scenario. Next please. So I think this indigenous knowledge needs to be preserved and revived, and this is another work that we have been doing. So what we have done is we have identified several seed saviors, genome saviors. I mean, there are so many such people who are still in remote tribal areas. They are aware about this amazing diversity, the traits, the different characteristics that these land races or native seeds have, and they know which one is good. And there are, I think, more than 20 different traits that we are trying to document around those millets, around paddy, around maize. So you can see this maize diversity in one particular region, and each one of it has different kind of traits. Maybe some are good in cooking, quality is good, some taste wise it is good, some preservation quality is good, and some may be rich in zinc. So I think we are trying to characterize and also using biotechnology tools to understand the nutrition profiling also we are doing of all these. We are trying to document this knowledge, and mostly it is the women who are having this knowledge. They know how to preserve these seeds for next season, and main important thing is they have the culinary skills. They know which dishes to prepare out of these kind of amazing diversity, food related diversity that is there, and also how to integrate that into diet. So several dishes, even if somebody gives us millet, we may not know how to consume it. So I think it is very necessary to have those culinary skills also. And I think culture, and now I'm going to participate in COP this year, COP 28 at Dubai, and there is an important pavilion on culture, tradition and climate action. There is important pavilion on locally led adaptation, and I think women have very important role, and indigenous communities have very important role to play in such kind of efforts. Next please. Local seed banks we have established in multiple villages, and one of the effect of climate change is uncertainty of rain. and they are not getting that number of days, like 170 days, 250 days of rainfall, that once we used to get assured rainfall. Now people are not aware when to sow the seeds, and then there is suddenly dry spell, and that requires some resowing. And for resowing, if they go to some other multinational seed company, as it is farmers are poor, so that will make them more marginalized, more kind of poor, and that make them vulnerable. That is why food sovereignty is very very important, and these local seed banks are kind of giving them assured sorts of seeds. And these desi seeds, we call it indigenous or native seeds, they are the kind of have a power and ability to generate, regenerate, or viable, keep them viable year after year, not like hybrids or kind of release varieties of seeds, so a breed types of seeds. So I think this is also very important in this particular action. A lot of work is being done by BIF on conservation and management of agrobiodiversity through community participation. And you can see the right hand corner, this lady is called Rahibai, and she has got the award, highest award given to Indian citizen, called Padma Shri by Government of India. And she is totally illiterate, but when she fell ill, she realized like maybe pesticides and chemicals that we are consuming are making us weak, and it is high time that we should revive our traditional seeds. And she is the kind, she gathered other women and started a movement, and now she's called a seed mother. So very very inspiring story. You can read it on Google also, Rahibai Popre. And today if you go, this kind of bean seeds she's collecting, and her village has several types of beans which can come in every month. And beans, as you know, is a very rich source of protein. So it's such kind of amazing diversity is there, wisdom is there, people are there, and seed saviors are there. I think we need to recognize and reward their talent, and make this movement active. Next, please. So, this is again, these are some of the examples I'm trying to give just to show how we need to see them in continuum, as continuum. So, another thing is, another example is Nahari, which is an indigenous tribal cuisine corner. We have started in one of the states, where you can see these are all like local food. Finger millet is there, different wild vegetables are there, and these are kind of liked by many people now. So what they try to do is they try to document these food resources, and the list was went up to 250 different wild food resources which were documented, and children are not aware of many of these, and many of these are getting extinct also. And after that, we did not wanted to keep it at the level of only research. We wanted to we believe in research in use, and that is why we wanted to do extension around this research, and we wanted to make people aware about the diversity that exists in their region. And also it is a source, rich source of food and nutrition security. And climate action, it is very very important, climate action as well. So we started this, and as you all know ki this, we wanted to make it self sustainable. So this is an enterprise started and managed by all tribal women. And initially it was started in exhibitions, they started selling this food, and after that they set up one outlet, and now there are 11 such outlets they have set up across highways, which are visited by many tourists. And people are liking this food very much, and they are ready to pay the amount that is being demanded by these women. And now looking at the demand, they had also started all women enterprise, which is a mobile food truck, and it is also entirely managed by women. So what I'm trying to say is, it's a, we normally see feel ki rural women are not capable of anything, or they are just for household chores. But I think these women are at the forefront when it came to nutrition security, when it come to kitchen gardens, when it came to revival of these food traditions, culinary skills, and also serving this food. And now because of that, we are bringing more and more area under millet production. Next, please. So this has got one case study award also recently. So this was like, because of feminization of farming, there was lot of drudgery. And as it is, women in India, they have to collect water, they have to fetch water, they have to collect fuel wood for as a energy for cooking, as a cooking fuel. Also farming operations they have to do. And because of which, because of climate change, the severity has increased. And there is a need to relook how best we can have actions where drudgery can be reduced. And therefore the focus is on introduction of women friendly farm machineries, and which are small farm machineries, not too heavy. Because I think what is happening is, when you are getting the tractor loaded machineries, women are not finding it easy to operate. So it is very necessary to have women friendly farm machineries, understand their workload and understand their requirements. Also they are small landholders. So we keep saying in India ki, instead of west, that is US, where land holdings are quite different, it is farm mechanization, it is managed differently. We should look towards east. I mean, countries like Japan, countries like China, where it is, the small holdings, small landholders are there, and machineries are also small and women friendly. So that is the kind of orientation required. Now again, here the cost effectiveness needs to be seen. So we have also introduced custom hiring center, where the machineries can be rented out, and this is again an enterprise managed by women. So what I'm trying to say is, there is livelihoods, plus there is a climate action, and there is a drudgery reduction that we are aiming at. Next please. So yeah, so these are the various pathways, self realization for women, capacity building, demonstration of best package of practices. Like now, this lady, you can see we have introduced line sewing instead of broadcasting, or line sewing can less, within less seed, a lot of good tillers are coming, and yield is also good. Seed support, custom hiring center, tractor training, digital awareness. So these are the kind of lot of those support system is required to empower women farmers, and to make them change makers in agriculture. And this is what we are focusing as women empowerment pathways. Next please. So several such interventions are required now, not only in agriculture or crop based system, but also in livestock. In livestock also, it is from feeding the animals, collecting the fodder, collecting milk, giving it to dairy, collecting dung. So everything women have to do, but she is the one who doesn't have any say when it comes to selling the animal, selling the milk, how to use that income, decision making at home. She doesn't have much of this say. So what we are trying to do is, we are trying to build that cadre of paravets, and also giving lot of knowledge, access to technologies, access to advanced knowledge and skills. And that way we are ensuring farm women centrality in livestock sector also. And now we you can see there are several such change makers, like they are earning also, they are providing services to villagers, and they themselves have acquired many, adopted many good practices and technologies and services as a farmer also. So they are on the path of transformation now, and these are the kind of thing which needs to be replicated elsewhere also. Next please. Yeah, so digital, like everywhere now there is digital ecosystem, and I think again there is this notion that technology and women do not go hand in hand. So somehow that bias is still there, but I think that is what we are trying to break, those kind of glass ceilings, where we have taught them. When in I can give you one example of climate smart village, where we wanted to introduce of give advisories, climate related advisories to women. And then we collected numbers, phone number, this was in tribal areas. We collected phone numbers, and then we realized the message is going to her son, who is in city, studying in city. So we realized, like, they phone number that they gave, they do not have phones, smartphones. So I mean, that is also leading to digital divide. So I think we should be careful, and then to understand what is it that we want, and whether that ecosystem exists in the particular region. And now we have, like you can see the women driving tractor, women using advisories, and selling her produce on WhatsApp businesses. So this, such digital financial literacy type of work also we have done, and we have taught them tractor driving, not that she should drive the tractor, but to break inhibitions that I can, and even technology and women can go together. So that is the kind of work that we are doing. Next, please. So this is also a very important aspect of gender and climate action. Now, this particular thing is an inspiring story of Uttarakhand in Himalayas, where a lot of those commons are in degrading state, and these were the community pastoral lands. Now, what we have done is, now since all women are there, we just talk to them about greening of these pastures, earlier pasture lands. Now they are in degrading state, and all the women came together, and the entire land has been ecologically restored. And now you can see thick forest. Actually, this is old photo. You can see thick forest of different species, native species are there, different birds and fauna, flora and fauna, you can see in that region. And recently we did study also to assess the biodiversity, and also we tried to understand the carbon stock. So those are the kind of inspiring stories that are there, and it is all women led. I mean, if you look at those women, they look very delicate, and they are extremely beautiful. But the kind of work they do, you will be surprised to see, they are not delicate the way they look, but they are very tough and they can do anything. Next, please. So this has also led to rejuvenation of their springs. So a lot of those climate actions we have introduced in the form of contingency planning, various climate smart practices and technologies, building partnership with government and also banks for loaning, and a lot of use of technology and blending of renewable energy and bioenergy type of solutions also. Next, please. So yeah, so these are the kind of pillars of our climate smart village, where we are focusing on weather smart, water smart, carbon smart, nitrogen smart, energy smart, knowledge smart, institution smart. So within that, there are portfolio of practices, services, and technologies that are there. Again, keeping women centrality, so that they benefit out of this technology demonstration and dissemination. Next, please. So one important area which is discussed and emerging globally is nature-based solutions or nature-positive solutions. And when it comes to nature-based solutions, I think what we are talking about is not harming nature, but harnessing the power of nature. So the examples that I gave you, agrobiodiversity, whether it is work on soil organic carbon, whether it is work on land restoration, whether it is work on greening of pasture land, all of these are nature based on nature positive solutions. And I think women have this sixth sense, and they have been always living in harmony with nature, and especially it is true about indigenous communities. So I think we need us to adopt something called reverse anthropology. Like, one of my senior used to say, like, it's not like always like we have to bring something and provide them from external, from outside. I think we also can learn a lot from them. And adaptation that we are talking about, actually they have been living in harmony with nature for several generations. So I think we need to relook and revisit the kind of association that they have, the kind of belief system that they have, and kind of useful traditions that they have, and we need to learn from them and scale it up. Next, please. So this is one important lesson. And yeah, these are again conservation, managing, restoring, recycling. Everybody is talking about circularity now. Like dung. So dung is contributing to methane, but dung is also a resource. Can we call dung, instead of waste, can we call dung as a resource? It is a very good resource when it comes to biogas. It's a green energy source. So I think that need to have a different perspective now is required. And then I think small is beautiful, Schumacher has said. Also, a lot of circularity and bioeconomy. There is ample scope for green businesses also around these resources that are there. Next, please. So I think what is required is a total transformation, a shift in our thinking, the way we see the things, and systems approach is required because I think a lot of compartmentalization and solving things in isolation we are doing. But I think that systems view, holistic view is required to understand that interconnectedness, to be able to ensure the environmentally sound sustainable development, food and nutrition security, poverty reduction, gender equality, just transition. Now this COP28 people are talking about loss and damage fund, just transition, climate finance. So I think all of these, I'm just trying to share key, this is not new thing. We just need to put ourselves back in the shoes of farmers. Yeah, next please. There is now like a discussion on One Health also. So in One Health also we are talking about health of a human being, health of livestock or animal, and health of a planet as continuum. Because again they are all interlinked. The COVID is the example where a lot of zoonotic diseases I think we need to be aware of. So I think that is the kind of lessons that the people are. I mean we are getting, and these are the various kind of impacts that we can draw from the nature-based solutions, the climate actions, also keeping the women centrality, inclusive approach for climate actions. Next, please. Uh, yeah, Sustainable Development Goal. I think Karen spoke about SDGs. So a lot of those SDGs are linked to the kind of actions that we just spoke about, because zero hunger essentially is linked to climate action. You know, all of them are interlinked. They are not isolated. They are interconnected, and we have to adopt action which can influence two, three of those goals. So that is very, very important. Next, please. I think there's only last slide. Yeah. So and impact. If we adopt this kind of approach, I think the impact is on planet. Impact can be seen economic front also, profit and people definitely. So this and if we adopt those kind of pathways or path, I think that is the path of sustainability or sustainable development. I think that is what also Karin spoke when during opening remarks. So I think sustainable development and just transition, climate actions, women centrality, all of that goes hand in hand. If we understand this kind of interconnectedness is something what I wanted to say. Last slide, please. Yeah, so this is my last slide, and I think it is not either or. We need to adopt a development process, development efforts, development actions, the type of partnerships that we are talking about, technologies that we are talking about. I think it should have both. It should aim at ecosystem well-being, the health of a planet, as well as health of a human being or well-being of human being. So that has to go hand in hand, and I think it is not either or, and it's not difficult. There are several such examples and best practices that I tried to show you today. And like BAIF, there are many such organizations across globe who are doing very impressive work, and I think we need to have a pool of such best practices to be able to learn from it, draw lessons from it, policy influence policies and programs accordingly, and decide for ourselves, and give a better future for our children as well. So with this, I will stop, and I would request Taylor also to stop sharing screen. Thank you for that support, and over to you all for any questions. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. Joshi. It was a wonderful presentation, and I assume that other people are like me, like taking notes and and looking in the chat box at some of the resources that Gokul and Chrisanne have put up, and haven't had time to write a question down. So does anybody have a question to begin with? If not, I have a question. Okay, so and also it might help to unmute unmute yourself at this point if you don't want to be writing in the chat box, and we only have about 10 minutes. So I just have a quick question about if you are working for an NGO that in a rural area in India or maybe other parts of South Asia that would like to have your program implemented in their area, how do you go about doing that? I mean, do you is it coming from the villages that they want you to come in and do training and organize the women, or do you go out and try to find villages and women who might be interested in the programs? How does that kind of recruitment happen?
So, we are an implementing organization, and most of our work happens in villages. So, we have our presence in villages, more than 1 lakh villages of India. And we have presence, and our team directly work on ground. So whenever we are going to new villages, we develop rapport with them, we interact with the communities, we try to understand their problems, and based on that, we try to develop the programs in a participatory mode. So women are very equal partners in our program.
Okay, so in other words, your program comes to them or they come to you?
No, we go there.
Okay, you go
And
there.
now farmers are aware, villagers are aware about BAIF, the kind of science and technology based solutions that we are providing, the kind of participatory processes that we are introducing. So they are in continuously need for, farmers are always saying, we are ready to do hard work. Just give us right solution. Give us, well, suppose if improved seeds are there, new technology is there, we are taking them for exposure. Initially we are talking to them, we are trying to understand their pain points, we are trying to understand what solution they can do and what BIF needs to do, so those from where we can scout those resources. So all of that happens in a participatory manner.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. Chrisanne has a question.
Sure. I loved hearing about the millet and how it's now like considered a superfood, and it's International Year of the Millet by the UN. So I know, sometimes people are, really used to using the foods that are familiar, as you said. So I'm wondering how you support that cultural shift, because if they, like you said, they didn't use millet before, like how do you really help to kind of change the culture around using that grain?
Sure, sure. I think that's a very good question because that shift will not happen suddenly. And in Marathi, millets are called as bharad dhanya. Bharad means coarse. The nomenclature itself, when we are saying it, coarse kind of cereals, or minor millets or minor cereals. So I think the type of narratives you use, that also makes whole lot of difference. So during the International Year of Millet, now our finance minister started calling it Shri Anna, which is like Shri is like goddess, Shri Anna. So that the future smart food, people are calling it future smart food. So the narrative building is very, very important. Second thing is, who are using it. So now there is lot of those lifestyle disorders that are happening across globe, and malnutrition is not deficiency of food, but it is obesity or not having balanced diet or not having dietary diversity. So there also doctors are recommending. Then suddenly lot of those ITC, Hindustan Unilever, those multinationals are also coming out with those super food, premium food, less glycemic index, glycemic the index type of, those type of advertisement they are doing, biofortified. So a lot of those, I think, market players are also playing important role. And as I said, ki, we also started creating the one is it is good only, but people don't know how to cook it. So a lot of recipe contests, popularizing those dishes, exhibitions, then giving them incentives, those type of things, also encouraging women to start businesses, startups. The processing itself was difficult for millets because they are very very tiny, and they are of different shapes and colors, so like, it's very difficult to process them also. So a lot of wastage used to happen. So every front lot of investment, and because of International Year of Millet, that ecosystem is created. Now during COP20, the government made special efforts to serve millet dishes to delegates from different countries. So I think those type of popularization, promotion, product packaging, branding, positioning, all those type of efforts are also required, and that were taken and are underway.
Okay. So we have one question from the chat. Eleanor wants to know, and first she says, thank you for this. I love and appreciate that your work balances the natural environment and human processes. I'm wondering, do you have thoughts or advice on how to get involved in work like this around the world? I hope to work outside the US and support efforts like those you shared today and help strengthen global collaboration.
Yeah. No, there are a lot of such opportunities. Volunteerism is being encouraged. There are so many fellowships that are there, scholarships that are there, different platforms are there, different Facebook groups are there. Now coalitions are there, organic agriculture movement is there, natural farming movements are there. So locally led adaptation groups are there. So heritage culture, climate heritage culture group is there. So I think if you have a will, you will find a way. And different people are there. uh, Now we have so many social media handles, so I think through social media also, the word is on your fingertip tip, and then you can be part of many such groups, and they are really committed, passionate people, for that cause. And I think you can be part of many such groups, and there are ample such opportunities to get engaged if you are really interested.
Okay, thank you. So we only have a minute left. I don't know, Taylor, could you put up the last slide? And just as you're doing that, perhaps Friends of Kalangarai could put on their website some resources for you, Eleanor, too, that would help you get going on finding other programs around the world. So I want you all to save the date for the next webinar, which is Thursday, January 18th. Gokul, could you introduce the speaker for the next webinar?
Sure. Thank you, Karen. So the next speaker is again another classmate of mine from my MSW school days, Ms. Shilpa Vasavda, who is working in the area of advocacy for women's land rights, and she, I'm sure, has interesting stories to tell. Thank you. Karen, you're muted.
I muted because I was hearing some crackle, but I have to remember to unmute. So I just want to remind people that we have a brief survey. It takes about 2 minutes to fill out. That will be sent by Taylor, and she's an intern at the Rhode Island School of Social Work, who's doing an evaluation project on this program. So we'd really appreciate if you could fill it out for her to help with completing her project, and also for us to get some feedback that we can use as we continue to plan these webinars. So I thank you all for your time in attending. And again, it was, it's just a wonderful presentation, and we learned a lot. And so thank you, Dr. Joshi, for presenting.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Oh, Taylor, do you have something to add?
I was just going to say that if you're not able to fill out the survey right now, I'm going to be also sending the link in an email after this presentation is over. So if you need the link, you can check your email.
Yeah, and I just want to remind you too that we are recording all of these webinars, and in case you register but can't attend, you can still get access to the recording. But it is helpful to register so that we, can, get your email stuff. So, okay, well, thank you so much, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Gokul. Thank you, Karan. Thank you, Taylor, for that support.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good
Dr.
night
Joshi.
from
Have
India.
a good night. Good night.
Thank you. It was amazing and a great.
Thank you very much. Let us be in touch.
Yes.